welcome, Stacy. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me come down.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I was excited to hear that you were running for Senate.
Yeah, I think I've surprised some people, but there's been a lot of people that said, I knew it. I knew you were going to do this.
Did they know it and you didn't know it, or have you thought about this for a while?
I think some seeds have been planted along the way for the last couple years. I think I was just not sure that I was either ready or qualified, or, I just had a lot of thoughts kind of going through my head. And I really did feel that God gave me this little nudge, and there's just some confirmation that kind of was coming through. And, when I decided to announce it, I thought, where better than the Patriot meeting on Monday night?
Right, right. What was the confirmation?
Oh, I would say, people were giving me messages saying you would make an excellent Iowa senator. And yet they didn't know that that was a thought that was rolling around in the back of my brain.
Right, right.
But probably the coolest story, though, and of course I laughed about it, was a couple years ago. We had an awesome guest speaker at our Patriot meeting up in Algona, and her name was Anna Kate, and she's from Florida. And she came up, and so she was doing the presentation, and about, 15, 20 minutes into her presentation at our Patriot meeting, she stopped and she said, God's given me a word. And she looked over at me, and I was, sitting in that front where I usually do. And she said, I'm not supposed to call you Stacy Besch anymore. I'm supposed to call you Senator Stacy.
Oh my gosh.
And that was 2 years ago. And I laughed hysterically because I thought, oh, there is no way I would put myself into the lion's den. And here I am. I just felt like, God will equip me. And I'm actually really excited about it because I really feel at this point of the game, I can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So who was that again?
Anna Kate.
And what was she speaking about?
She's been one that's just, she's very in tune to listening to God, prophesying, and just where the world was kind of going at then. Because think about 2 years ago, we were in a major mess.
Oh, sure.
And so she was just kind of giving her opinions and I would say her vision of what she saw happening.
Okay, that's interesting. That's kind of like, I think in the Assemblies of God, sometimes there are people that do that too. Mm-hmm. That's wild. And what did you think about that? You thought, no way, right?
Yeah, I thought no way, and I laughed.
Right, that's what you said. So tell us about the Patriot group. I mean, you invited me to come up and speak. I really enjoyed it. Great group of people. How long have you been doing that?
And I love it. Yeah, the Patriot group. Again, another thing that I felt God called me to do was back in 2020, look how many of us just woke up. We woke up to the realities of what was happening, a lot of truths. And I just felt this nudge that we were supposed to start getting people together who were like-minded, who could actually assemble, right? Because we had the freedom to assemble. And we started this Patriot group, and it was May 7th of 2021 when we started. And it was 12 of us in my basement. And when we started it, it was just so refreshing to sit around a table and start just sharing like what we felt like we were being, allowed to see what was happening. And then I told every one of those 12, I said, all right, you guys all know at least 4 or 5 other people who think like we do. Invite them to come next month. Well, we had 50 people show up in my basement the next month. And I thought, whoa, this is going to be bigger than I thought. And so I was starting to search for a gym or, community center. And of course we had no budget, there's no money. But that's when we moved it up to Burt, Iowa, to their old school gym. And they were only charging me $50. And that's kind of where we started. And that's been, like I said, almost, we'll be coming up on 5 years here this next year. And it's just such an awesome, awesome group of people, true patriots. We get about 6 counties that show up. And we get awesome speakers like you who've been there. And truly, speakers have just fallen in my lap to educate the audience every month on different topics and passion. And I think we inspire action. We inspire people to keep researching. And I think really we're trying to get people to realize there's been corruption happening, and we're fighting a much darker, deeper side than any of us can imagine.
And is that kind of the purpose, to wake people up and educate people and provide them a space where, they know that they're around friends.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to call it a support group, but it kind of is, right? Because I think we are supporting each other when, when the enemy's working, you sometimes feel all alone. And this way, we're not crazy, we're not alone. And people are starting to feel like we can rally up together to really take not only our country back, but our states back.
Yeah, I thought it was an amazing group. Although when you said I had 90 minutes to speak, I was a little bit concerned. Like, what am I going to talk about for 90 minutes?
Look how fast it went.
Yes, it went fast. Yeah, no.
And they loved you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I love them too. What other speakers have you had that you really appreciated?
Oh gosh, we've had so many wonderful ones, but some of the top ones that come to to my mind right away, we had General Flynn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had General Flynn.
That's awesome.
Yeah, back in the summer of 22. And then Dr. Lee Merritt. I mean, we got a huge crowd for her.
I shared the stage with her.
Yeah, so
she's amazing.
I mean, those are just a couple of the top, people, but Mark Thompson to me is a hero of mine. I mean, just what he's done legislatively, but a Marine and Benghazi whistleblower, and be able to have him still in the fight. So he's been to numerous, Patriot meetings, and I just think he inspires people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm going to move your microphone just a little, just so I can see you better.
Oh,
there we
perfect.
go. Yeah, I don't know Mark real well. His wife reached out to me one time. I probably need to have him on the podcast.
Absolutely.
I get, legislators that reach out to me often, and sometimes it's just like drawing a name from a hat, or it's like you said you were coming out Friday. We were going to meet for lunch, and I'm late lunch, and I thought, well, she's going to be out of here. We might as well do a podcast. Plus with your announcement.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Tell me about your announcement.
When I finally decided to actually verbally say it out of my mouth, which is, if anybody that knows me over the past 30 years, I've opened up numerous businesses. If it comes out of my mouth, it's happening.
Right.
So on Monday night, I decided that, I'm going to say it in front of this Patriot group because they've been awesome supporters and just a great, again, like-minded group. So when I was in front of them and I kind of gave them this analogy of a football game and that I wanted to get on the field because we have too many people on the sidelines at our Capitol. And not only did we get a standing ovation for that announcement, the outreach of support has been absolutely incredible and humbling all at the same time. And I would probably tell you this, the one question I've been getting is, why would you run when there's already a Republican senator in your district?
Great question.
Right? So
sure.
It's a great question. And I said to them, let's just think about what primaries were designed for, because primaries they weren't around when our founding fathers created this country. But eventually the people knew that if we didn't have primaries, the common people, the people, we were losing control on that nomination process. And so primaries are designed for the people to have more control in that nomination process. And if we don't have Republicans running against Republicans in the nomination, which is the primaries, then are we just saying we're good enough?
Right, right.
I don't want to ever say that we're just good enough.
And people talk about term limits all the time. And I sometimes think, okay, well, isn't the primary the process where we determine who we want to be in that seat? I mean, yeah, sure, when somebody gets really entrenched, it's hard to get rid of them, but that's apathy from people that say, oh, we need term limits. Well, go out and vote. Go out and knock doors for the person you want to primary. Go out and help them raise money. Go out and walk in the parades with them. Get off your ass and really get out there and show them, we don't have term limits, but we can definitely primary somebody and get somebody else in office.
100%. So,
right.
if I'm just going to kind of tell you that football analogy here, Oliver,
sure.
Because what you just said just fits to this analogy. We have a football game happening at the Capitol.
Right.
We got
right.
two teams.
Yep.
And we got very few who are on the field willing to get dirty, willing to, tackle and see where the goal is, right? So we got a few of them. We got a lot of them on the sidelines. Don't want to get their uniform stained, and they definitely don't want to get in the game and get hurt. So they just kind of like ride the fence. And then you get the people in the stands who are complaining, just like you said, we need term limits. We need, we need to get them out of there. We need new laws, but they just sit in the stands.
Yeah.
The cheerleaders are the ones who are going to say, I'm supporting that, candidate, and I'm going to help them door knock. I'm going to help them with parades. I'm going to help them get elected. And if I truly felt that we were an A+ team 100% across the board at the Capitol, I'd be putting on a cheerleading outfit.
Right.
But you know what? That's exactly why I said I'm going to get in the game.
Good for you.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got your team, or you making plans now?
Yeah, I'm kind of, I got some really good people. I mean, when God lines people up and says, all right, these people are on your path. And I've met them in the last couple of years, and it's just kind of ironic how they're exactly the person I needed. So I have a few people on the team. I'm still working on, like simple things like a treasurer and, finding people that you can trust and control the money and, things like that. And this morning I was with a gal who volunteered to say, hey, I'll do your website. I'll get it up and running. I'll do whatever I can do to help you. I want you elected. And so, look at that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have been speaking all over the state. Well, first of all, where are you from?
I'm from Algona.
And what district is that? What Senate district?
So Algona would be which is Kossuth County.
Okay.
So I'm, way up on that northern side, but that would be District 5 for the Senate.
Okay. And the last few years, you've been speaking all over the state about human trafficking.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Which really kind of became the foundation for why I decided to get in the game too. So I joined Team Iowa about almost 5 years ago. I joined Team Iowa, and Team Iowa is a group of Christian patriots. We're located all across the state. Steve Corey's our state director. He came up. He was one of my speakers at the Patriot meeting, and he pointed at me like an Uncle Sam point and said, "You're joining Team Iowa." That's really how simple it was. But he just could see that I had that passion and fire to make a difference in the state. Not at that, at that time, I did not think I was going to be talking about human trafficking or taking that on. But as soon as we got to where on our team, we were like, how can we make truly a difference in the state? And we started kind of coming up with a list of priority initiatives. Human trafficking rose to the top. Human trafficking has now exceeded narcotics. So
in Iowa?
Across the country. But yeah, especially Iowa. But we have so much. And the best definition for that, Oliver, is you can only sell drugs one time and they're gone.
Right.
But you can sell a human being over and over again. So it's a business.
And I know people that are listening, they've got to find it hard to believe that that's going on in Iowa. And I know you've been right in the middle of it on the front lines. Mm-hmm. You've had, you understand what's really going on. But somebody like me, I live out here in the suburbs. I go up the fairway. I go do my thing. I do whatever. I don't encounter any of that. Most people don't. How do you impact them, or how do you show them that it's really happening, or what's that conversation like?
Somebody was just to come up to me off the streets and say, really, we have human trafficking in Iowa? And my eyes were open too, and I usually will start off with that. Prior to me being educated, I thought it was about the Johnny Gosh days. I thought it was about kidnapping in the creepy white van. And so we think we're...
Or like workers, like...
labor trafficking.
Yeah, labor or something.
And so, in suburbia or rural America, if we don't see the creepy white van, we thought we were safe.
Sure.
Well, it's not the way it is anymore. That was probably more true back in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. And then we all got cell phones.
Right.
And now cell phones have increased that availability to an extent that is astronomical.
So what does it look like? What are the numbers in Iowa?
For numbers, I always tell everybody this. I was taught certain numbers, and I'll be happy to share that with you, but I don't get focused on stats or numbers because they could change dramatically.
Sure.
And you could look at like the Polaris Project, or you could look at a Safe House, what their numbers are, and everybody's is different.
Okay.
Everybody's is different, but in all reality, let's just focus on the same mission. But Iowa, when I was first learning from, at that time we had 3 detectives in our state, and that was back in early 2023. And one thing that they had taught me was that Iowa was number 3 in the nation based on per capita.
Number 3 in the nation?
Yeah, number 3.
Wow. That's insane.
So when I say that, people go, oh, well, that's because we have, I-80, 35, and 29.
Right.
Well, that would make sense if we're kidnapping and, hauling them down our interstates. Now, that does happen. So I don't want to say that doesn't happen. But the reality is that kids are being lured in online through gaming apps and social media apps, and then they're being forced fraud or coercion to meet up or sextortion. They'll use that as threats. And then, of course, they encourage then the next step, which is to traffic them, sell them, sexual favors, whatever it may be. And it is way farther down that path than we ever imagined. I mean, it started so long ago, and yet now we're playing defense on it.
So do they, when you say that, are they kidnapping these kids, or are they extorting them without their parents' knowledge, or what's going on?
I would say kidnapping is still a really small percent,
Okay.
Because think about this. If a trafficker actually takes them, meet me at the park, and then they take them, which can happen. Again, it can happen. But we have Amber Alerts and social media.
Right.
So
right.
it's too risky for traffickers. So what they end up doing is they will extort them through sextortion or whatever it might be, and they could still be living at home. They could be getting into lavish gifts. So I'm just going to give you an example. I mean, I've been traveling to schools now as well, and it is so disheartening because I had a boy. He was 17 years old from a school that I was at just recently. Came up and started talking to me, and he said, "Stacy, after I just listened to your presentation, I'm being trafficked." And I said, "Tell me about it." He said, "When you brought up lavish gifts," because I bring up that's one of the telltale signs.
Right.
A trafficker will start giving these kids brand new things. Maybe it's a brand new Xbox. Maybe it's cash. It could be a new bike. It could be all the way up to a new car. And they keep buying this stuff for them. And what kid doesn't love that stuff? I mean, they're getting these new things. They think it's awesome. And maybe they come from a poor family because guess what? They prey upon vulnerable kids. And then they say to them eventually, when the timing is right, now I have to sell you to either pay for all that back or the gifts are going to stop. I mean, whatever it is they do to manipulate and threaten these kids. Well, this boy was getting so many gifts, and especially cash gifts. This man knew that this kid came from a very poor family. This kid was passing the money to his parents, and his parents was super appreciative of this money, and he just kept saying it was a gift from this man. But this man was also demanding from this boy to do things.
Oh, my gosh.
And then I asked him if the parents knew, and he said no. And he was afraid to tell his parents.
So how did you deal with that? How did you help this kid, or were you able to?
Well, the first thing I do is I gave him a detective's number here in the state. Sometimes we get local law enforcement to help out. Sometimes, they're overworked and understaffed. And then the hard part, truly, that I've learned around the state is who do you trust, right? Who do you trust? And it's hard to know. But for him, some of these people, because he knew exactly who this man was, he was living in a neighboring town. And so he knew him and he had his name. And I said, perfect, hang on to all that information. And I want you to call this man. And you got to tell him your story and we got to get you help. And then honestly, Oliver, when I get in my car, I cry.
Yeah, I bet. That's tough.
Yeah, it is tough because these poor kids are, and that's just one story. So if I could tell any parent or any listener out there right now today, it's like, this is happening far more than you know. And there's so many kids who don't want to bring up these types of things that are happening to them because they're embarrassed. It's shame. They feel like, how could I get duped? That I've been manipulated? And most of them, it's because they come from broken homes or vulnerable families, and they're easy targets.
So we have some what you call them safe houses here in Iowa. We did a Sound of Freedom event. We rented a theater, the Palms, and showed the Sound of Freedom, and we had a couple of them come and speak. It's been a while, but I think it was Chains Interrupted maybe, and some other group that helped. I think they helped young women or women who had been trafficked. Do we have enough of that? Do we need more of those services? Tell me about that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
100% to answer your question, yes, we need more. But Chains Interrupted is awesome. So Teresa Davidson, who, was the founder and started Chains Interrupted, she's just a dear friend of mine, but she's such a great advocate and fighter for helping victims. So she's out of Cedar Rapids. So we have her over there. She does not have a safe house, but she is such a great resource for victims. And, of course, people like me out there, I know I can always call her with questions. But we have Dorothy's House and Gardens Gate Ranch right here.
Gardens Gate Ranch, that was one of them that came out.
Yes, yeah. they are definitely right here in Des Moines. We also have Team Jesus right here in Des Moines as well. And then we have Wings of Refuge in Ames, and then Lila Mae's house in Sioux City.
Okay.
Now, there could be some really small private safe houses around the state that we're unaware of. Because, think about it. Most of them have to be kept kind of quiet and anonymous, and you can't be giving any of the confidential, information. But those are the ones, those 5 are the ones that I know of well. And if you added all those 5 up, we can barely have 50 victims in our state.
Oh, my goodness. And how many do we have? I know you said numbers are hard, but is there any sort of estimate?
You know what? I don't even have a number to give you on how many victims, because it's the most underreported crime we have.
Is there a number on how many people have been helped to escape those situations?
I don't have a number for that either, because I'm going to give you this for an example. A victim comes into a hospital for whatever reason. First of all, we don't have enough SART and SANE nurses to help them to do actual good sexual assault, exams and things like that, so they can collect all the appropriate information so we can prosecute these people. So then we are telling some of these victims, whether it be boys or girls, well, you can either drive 3 hours or you can wait till Monday. Because especially if this happens on a weekend, what do you think that victim's going to do?
Not come back, probably.
They don't.
Right.
So we have a lot of suspected victims out there who we never end up following through because they don't get past that. So when we're in small rural communities all across our state, that typically tends to be what's happening. I do know they're working on a safe center here in Des Moines, which will be awesome. Nothing ever happens fast enough for me, so I wish that was already up and running. But we will have an all-encompassing facility for victims. So right now, if somebody was being, victimized up in Kossuth County, I, of course, would have to tell them to drive all the way to Des Moines. But you know what? I would drive them to Des Moines. I just think
have you done that?
I have not.
Okay.
No. I've done lots of phone calls and talking and trying just to direct them where to go. I really feel God's using me as a dot connector.
Sure.
Where do they need to go? And I've learned from so many people of who I can reach out to. But that gets me to, I just want to bring up something with you all over that. It's something we need so much help with. And it's not just the safe houses and safe centers and SART nurses and SANE nurses. Yes, we need more of them. But it's this whole demonic devouring of our children with pornography.
Right.
And if I could put a plea out there, it's where can these kids get help? Because almost every school I have been to, there's been at least 2, if not more, students who will come up to me and say, Stacy, I'm so addicted to porn and I don't know what to do.
I interviewed Chloe Cole, and she said that she had an addiction when she was younger. And that part of what turned her off about being a woman was in elementary school, there were boys that were watching porn on their phones. And the way they referred to her and things like that kind of pushed her away from like wanting to be feminine, you know?
Yeah.
And it was really, her story. I mean,
yes.
she's an incredible force for good now, but it was what a heart-wrenching tale.
And that's...
So what do we do about that? I mean, I know like Texas, I think Austin, don't you have to be 18 and show your ID and things like that? I mean, is that something that, as a senator, is that something you would push for in Iowa?
That is definitely something that's on my list of things I want to do as a platform. And I really want to aid the people who have kind of initiated some of this already. And Kevin Allons is one of our awesome senators.
I love Kevin.
I love Kevin too. I mean, he's just a great veteran, but still doing action. And Kevin was initiating this last year already because he's come to a couple of my presentations, and he definitely heard the plea for help for pornography. And so, I mean, it's a step. I mean, it's worth taking a step that, you have to be 18. You got to show, a driver's license. And I know that's not the fix all, because people are going to say, well, they can get around that.
Right.
But we got to start somewhere.
Right.
A lot of these algorithms are just unsoliciting, sending pornography to kids because they know their age.
Mm.
The average kid who starts watching porn is 10.
That's insane.
That's the average age. I know of kids who've come up to me, they were 8 and addicted to porn. Yeah.
Wow. Now, is it a certain demographic? Is it not socioeconomic? No. It's just, here's the portal. Every kid has one. They're curious by nature.
Right. They're curious. I mean, think about this. How many kids have a phone or device?
Right.
That's probably how many kids have been exposed to pornography. And then, when you and I were growing up, I always say this during my presentations, we had we had Playboy magazine, and it was a picture.
Right.
I mean, growing up, it was magazines with pictures.
Right.
Those are not near as addictive to the brain as a video.
Right.
A video becomes a highly addicted dopamine drug. And so it becomes such an intense amount of addiction that it's higher almost sometimes than alcohol and drugs, and these kids don't know what to do. Well, then these kids, the next step is then in high school or middle school. I've had some middle school kids talk to me about this. They use porn as sex ed.
Yeah. And our sex ed has become a how-to manual and less of a, here's the biology, here's the things, it's nice that they passed the Baby Olivia bill. Mm-hmm. So at least they'll have to learn about the stages of development of a fetus and a child in the womb. But it's been, comprehensive sex ed and all these things that have kind of celebrated that in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've had teachers tell me that they weren't allowed to even talk about abstinence or some of these danger things. They have to talk about abortion. They have to talk about all these other things. And
right.
Yeah, our sex ed has become so much into the woke agenda is really what it's come into. But I want to jump on something you just said that reminded me is that, I'm going to stand firm against woke ideologies.
Right.
I just think, when did morality go out the window? And not only that, but when we are pushing back against the LGBTQ, right. And I know they're going to come after me because that's typical, right? That's their tactic, and their weapon is just to, let's just try to sabotage her. But they don't realize how human trafficking rolls right into what they're doing. And so when you brought up Chloe's story,
right,
these girls at such a young age don't want to be that feminine girl anymore because of either through some type of abuse or, like you said, this pornography. So they don't trust boys or men, especially if they've been abused. So they become lesbian.
Mm.
Boys who have been raped by older men, because boys are the number one highest paid commodity in our country for human trafficking is boys. So when they're raped by a man at a young age, they believe they're only gay. So do you see how those two things alone, now when we look back, like, how did all these kids just all of a sudden think that we don't have the normal thing that God created? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm totally with LGBTQ or I'm born in the wrong body. A lot of this was stemmed from trafficking, abuse, trauma, etc.
Yeah, it's insane. Chloe did mention that she was being groomed at one point online as well. It's such a challenge, and I know, older gay people that would really want to disassociate themselves from the TQ plus IA stuff that they,
right.
They feel like kids are being medicalized and sexualized and their movement has been hijacked. You know what I mean? And I don't think, there's this idea that it's more compassionate. And I think people are starting to wake up. I mean, I've been saying this for years, and it was harder to say it before, but now it's become a lot easier. But although, some of the subcommittees I've testified in haven't been so easy. It's easy for me because I just speak the truth and I do it with compassion. And it's just so easy to say, what's more compassionate? Helping a kid become happy with the way they were born, or telling them that they're so messed up they have to be medicalized, mutilated, they have to be on drugs their whole life. They're going to experience all these surgeries where after these surgeries, they'll never have an orgasm. They'll never, they'll have kidney issues. They'll have urinary tract issues. All these medical issues. If you just say, what are the pros and cons? And one of the challenges I have is, okay, so we fought this battle and we think, okay, we've removed gender identity from the Civil Rights Code. We are protecting women's rights. We're protecting kids from mutilation, and we're protecting women's sports. But now we still have this whole slew of psychologists and psychiatrists that have this affirm and assist model. Mm-hmm. So what do we do in Iowa about that? I mean, you take your kid, or somebody, I've talked to parents, they take their kid to the psychologist to get help, and the psychologist says, oh yeah, you're born in the wrong body. Let's help you transition socially or whatever until it snowballs into something worse.
Right.
How do we combat that?
I wish I had a magic answer. I really do. But I do see that I've had parents that had called me up and said, I've been taking my kid to a therapist who was so strong on the whole DEI, SEL, the whole affirming, like you just said. And they're like, oh my goodness. Now they felt that they slipped further away from the kid for help than really getting the help that they wanted.
Right.
So is it finding the Christian counselors, or is it, how do we stop that? A lot of these therapists who are probably out there, especially between the ages probably 25 and 40, think about where they got their education.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it comes back to is, what education are we teaching these people to become the therapist? And I personally think that's where a lot of it stemmed from, is they were indoctrinated at college, and then now all of a sudden they're rubbing off and flowing off into these patients that are coming in.
Right. And then as a state, I don't know if there's anything we can really do about that, because if they, there have been cities that have banned alternative therapies than the affirm and assist model, the life-saving, gender-affirming care, right? Mm-hmm. They call it conversion therapy if you don't do that, which is crazy. The way they use words to obfuscate the truth,
right?
This flowery title of, conversion therapy used to be, okay, something maybe not so great, and now it's just normal therapy is conversion therapy if it's not affirming their self-diagnosed gender identity. It's just so bizarre.
I know, and I love all these kids.
Me too.
And so to see these kids like hurting, and when I do see a kid who's trying to transition, to be honest, I would love to run up to him, put my arms around him and say, you know what?
Yeah.
Jesus loves you.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can help you.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say to them. But when they just look at us like we're just trying to we're trying to push our religion on them, and that's not it. It's called compassion.
Yeah.
But it's just Jesus is the only one that can change them.
Yeah. I saw a woman one time that had a T-shirt on that said, I love your gay kid. It was at the Capitol. And I just wanted to go say, I love your gay kid.
I do too.
We love your gay kid. This isn't about that. This is about mutilating kids. This is about harming kids and sending them down a lifelong path of, it's about truth. It's about biology. It's about reality. Anyway, I digress. That's, I know. You can tell that's one of my hot buttons, because I don't like, I feel like our job as human beings is to try to ease suffering for real.
That's right.
Not just phony compassion,
Well, and again, they're victimized.
Yeah.
Right? They're being victimized, whether it be human trafficking or that, they're being victimized. And the number one, victim they go after is the most vulnerable. Well, they're the most vulnerable.
Yeah, the kids are the most vulnerable.
Yes,
They'll
absolutely.
they believe in Santa Claus, if
That's
you
right.
tell them Santa Claus is real. So they haven't formed, they don't understand reality yet. And,
Yes.
and then we have adults that are lying to them about reality.
Yes. One of the big things Mark and Thompson and I talk about is demand reduction. So that's kind of been a hot word we've been using here in the last years. As a state, we're not going after enough people. I will tell you that when it comes to human trafficking. I mean, the biggest ultimate goal would be to eradicate human trafficking in the state. But I would at least like to start with making it the least hospitable, place for it to happen. Well, if we keep going after traffickers, which I feel like we're hardly going after any because we've only had a couple Class A felony cases in our state. But if we were to go after the demand, and the demand are the buyers of these kids and victims, wouldn't that make a statement? And I love when Mark Thompson always says, like, I'm tired of seeing the guy in an orange jumpsuit all tatted up for the mugshot, because that's what we all picture is the typical mugshot.
Right.
What about the man in the $1,200 suit who has this multi-million-dollar home in Okoboji, Iowa? Wouldn't he make a great mugshot if he's the buyer? That might send a shockwave across the state that we mean business. And so I would love to, as a senator, like, let's figure out how we go after the demand, because unless we do, they're going to find another trafficker.
Right.
The trafficker is just the employer.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. So what else is on your list besides those big mountains?
Those are huge mountains, I know. They are, but, God gave me a voice.
Right.
He did. I've been a speaker for, over 25 years. I've been a speaker. And I always like to say that because I failed speech class in high school.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, true story. So I just think it's funny. But, for God giving me a voice, and I believe in that Bible verse, Proverbs 31, verse 8, to be a voice for the voiceless, to make sure justice is served. And so I felt like I could go out and do this for the victims, and I've met so many wonderful victims and survivors. And tomorrow I'm gonna be in Polk City doing a presentation tomorrow. We can come back to that, but I'll be in Polk City, and I got a numerous survivors showing up tomorrow. And I just want them to know that, my arms are not only wrapped around them, but I'm there for them. That's number one key, is I want them to know I'm there for them. So, yeah, I know these are big mountains and big dreams, but if you have dreams and visions for this state and you don't put your name in the ring, or you don't get on the field, how is anything ever going to change?
Right.
It's not. So I'm willing to put myself out there to continue on, but to take it to the next level to help all these victims. So yes, that's number one on my list, is that, and protecting these kids from predators and the pornography, and all that kind of goes hand in hand.
I want to ask you about the movie Gridshock. I haven't watched it. I need to watch it. I'm sorry I haven't, but I know I've seen it pop up so often. And who created it? What's it about? Is it something you've been promoting too, or do you ever promote that? Okay.
Well, we use it. Team Iowa, we bought the educational license for Gridshock.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Gridshock is just a 55-minute long documentary. Vanessa McNeil, she's from here in Des Moines, she's the one that produced it. So she produced it. She was an Iowa State University grad, went on to UNI. She put together this awesome documentary that I always say it builds the foundation to what trafficking is, because she teaches you in this film, what is it, who's involved. She has the privilege of interviewing 3 victims, so you get 3 completely different stories. So you can go online and just type in like Gridshock Documentary, and you can rent it yourself for $10. But otherwise, we show it for free at all of our events because we bought that educational license.
Are you showing it tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
Are you really?
Yeah.
What time is that?
8:30 tomorrow morning. a.m.? Yes.
I'm supposed to be at a candidate training, which I've done several of them, but I always say yes when they ask me. That would be really cool.
You should. So
Where's that at?
It's going to be in Polk City. Just let me look up the church here really quick.
Look it up. I'm looking up the movie right now.
You look up the movie. But we show this at the very beginning, because then once we're, there in the beginning, I might even need to put my specs on here, 'cause,
Go for it.
As we're getting older, I'm like, let me see if I can find, I just want to make sure I have the right location for you tomorrow. because I don't want to give anybody false information on that. It's starting at 8:30 tomorrow morning in Polk City, and it's going to be a good 2.5-hour event, and it's going to be at Lakeside Fellowship Church.
Okay.
There in Polk City. And like I said, I have I have 2 Safe House directors coming tomorrow. I have numerous survivors. I think they are having a special guest right after me. And of course, you're welcome to talk to people afterwards, but it'll be Gridshock, and then I talk for an hour. And when you talked earlier about how do I let people realize that this is happening, I tell stories.
Sure.
The only way to bring the reality to this is to say, do you know of the town of Humboldt? Do you know the tiny town of Renwick, Iowa? And then I share the cases that have been happening.
Really? Interesting. Yeah. Isn't that Humboldt where Representative Holt is from?
No.
No, that's...
Mark Thompson's to the east of there. Yeah, he's to the east of Humboldt. But yeah, so I mean, if you can come tomorrow, I encourage anybody to come tomorrow. So you might have to get up early and do your hair.
I don't have to get up early. Oh, do my beard? Yeah.
You might have to do that.
You know, it's almost as much work as probably your hair.
I bet it is.
This, I use a Bic in the shower for the top, but
I love it. I love it.
I air dry, hair dry with the diffuser. Got to get the skin dry under there.
Yeah, you gotta look good. Yeah. So that's been the big thing, which prompted and promoted this whole run. Yes, but I want to tell you another thing that's really near and dear to my heart, and it's the whole property rights.
Oh, sure.
Because you know why? That carbon capture pipeline wants to come up through my area in District 5.
Oh, okay.
Quite a few places in District 5. And I'm married to a farmer. We live on a farm. And I cannot imagine these century farmers or people who work so hard like my husband to think that the government can come in and say, you know what, we're just going to just take the land that you paid for, that you're creating a harvest and a crop, for, and just take it away for private gain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds like the biggest crime of the century.
Where did your current senator weigh in on that? How did they weigh in on that?
So our current senator is David Rowley, and I have nothing negative to say about David. In fact, as of present day, I mean, that's who I'll be challenging at the primaries, June 2nd. David did vote, we call him the dozen down at the Senate,
sure,
to vote to protect property rights, which is great. I'm so glad he did do that. That was the right thing to do.
Right.
But in my mind, it shouldn't have even been a thought or a question. You should stand firm on that.
Sure.
I mean, when you have farmers all across the state, and of course, that's one of our largest businesses in the state, it's not even a question. You should have just been right on it right now, and so shouldn't many of the other senators that are down here.
Yeah, I know Mike Pike real well.
Yeah.
He's a fireball. He was one of the dozen.
Yes.
And actually, a lot of them stood on the front lines with us against vaccine mandates in the beginning.
Yes.
I think Sandy Salmon, Sherilyn Westridge. There's so many in the dozen that fought for other rights. Whether it was parental rights or against mandates or against CRT and SEL and all that stuff creeping into our school system. So. Yeah, definitely a solid group of senators.
I would consider them to be, really good role models. I mean, for me, like to know that if there wasn't them and I was putting my name in the ring, you'd feel all alone. I already have like the safety net of some good people already there. Yeah. I mean, that dozen's kind of splintered right now. We just got a lot of work to do down here.
It's tough. And somehow, the Senate and the House need to be able to work together this next session and get beyond the issues they had this last session for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
there's just been some brokenness, and I really do think God's on the move. I just think some good positive things are going to happen, at the Capitol. And
we have a men's group that meets once a month of business owners and community leaders, and we meet with legislators. And we had Kevin Alons and Jesse Green at the same table. And we had a great discussion about it. We've had Lynn Evans there as well. We've had every month we have at least 2 or 3 legislators there, but it's great to see people that were on different sides of that issue able to have a dialogue about it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That's what I wish people just do is like, can we just sit and talk without getting angry and like just, listen to both sides and just kind of hear like what's possible. And it's just, I think that whole dialogue is just, they've suppressed it.
Yeah. So, what's your husband think about all this stuff? I met him briefly. He was very quiet.
Yeah, he's definitely more the introvert of the two of us, right? I mean, if introvert and my name never go together.
Right.
He's an awesome supporter, right? He knew when he married me that this was definitely who Stacy is, and that I want to make a difference, and where my spiritual journey is. I mean, who knows me best than him for my, how I think and where I'm going and what I want to see happen. And so, of course he's a little nervous for me because there's always going to be people who try to attack. But I don't let those people bother me. So I think that's a growing thing. In my 20s, I would have let that bother me. That doesn't bother me anymore because I know whose team I'm on. But, he was just always worried about those kind of things at first. And, how does this change the aspect of time and, all those things? And I said, well, I think that God's going to give me 8 days instead of 7. It's kind of what I joked. But but you know what the question was to him, Oliver, that I said that just changed everything?
What was it?
Why are we here? Why are we here? We're here for a very short time on earth.
Yeah.
And what are we doing with it? And when I said that to him, yeah, I mean, honestly, he looked at me with tears in his eyes and he said, you got to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great to have that support.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I just know, I said, God will protect us. He'll guide me. He'll equip me. And we're going to make a difference in this country.
That's amazing. Yeah, we'll be lucky to have you in the Senate.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. Like I said, I have this huge wish list of stuff I want to see done and change. And I know that if I could wave a magic wand and change, right away. But I just want people out there to know that I'm going to keep pushing. It's not something where I get defeated and you quit. You keep going and you keep using your voice till people realize and learn the truth.
For sure. Is there anything else you'd love to cover before we wrap up?
Oh, for covering, I brought this up last night, and I, God kind of always uses my words, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about an analogy here about trafficking. You see, when you think of trafficking of people, it's about force, fraud, or coercion. These buyers are buying these victims to then force them to do things that maybe they don't want to do. The same thing's happening at our Capitol. Mm-hmm. We have buyers who are buying politicians who then force them to vote. Maybe not exactly how they want them to vote, but they're forcing them to do it anyway. We have politicians who are being trafficked.
Interesting.
And that whole concept to me, that's where the corruption is. That's where the corruption is in every state and within our country. And if you really step back and think about that whole thought process of trafficking victims that we think is for sex, but what about that we're trafficking people for votes?
So, and you're talking about, okay, so maybe a campaign is funded or a majority fund has a lot of funds in it from certain industries or lobby groups or whatever else, and then they're kind of expected to vote a certain way on an issue that would benefit them.
100%.
And I know some legislators will say, and they maybe won't vote, and then they won't get the funding next time.
That's right.
And they're okay with it. And then you see some that, are so afraid that maybe they won't get elected again or that they'll be primaried, that they succumb to that.
That's right.
And I feel like it's way more prevalent on a national level, but it is. Yes. It does happen here.
That's right.
At a state level, for sure.
Right. And I think people are just, because when you have we the people out there in rural Iowa wondering, why in the world did they vote that way? Why would she veto that bill? Like when they start wondering those types of things, and we've all heard that slogan, follow the money, right? Follow the money.
Right.
Where's it coming from? And is that buying votes? And if the majority is buying votes, then we have politicians being trafficked. And that fear that people are like, yeah, I'm afraid they're going to not give me money, or they're going to give me a crappy committee, to head next year.
Right.
Let's start standing up. Who cares if you get a crappy committee that's not even what we came down here for. The whole point is, if we actually get the integrity and morality back within our hearts, and we're not running for a title, we're running because we want to make action, we would change this state like no other.
Right, right. Yeah, it's always good to inject people who aren't afraid to do the right thing no matter what.
That's right.
And I think that's contagious too. I think courage is contagious.
Yes.
So the more legislators that we have that are willing to do that, the more I think other legislators are too. And, I've seen some great people. I think we have some really great House reps and some really great senators. And, sometimes we don't agree on every issue, of course, but we can agree on, some of the important things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want people just to think about that, because that was something that, I don't know, God laid on my heart yesterday, and I kind of brought it up last night, and it makes sense.
Yes.
Because it is happening, not to every one of them, but it is happening.
Right.
And I just want people to know, as truth comes out, we the people are the ones that get to choose who's going to be nominated at primaries. Then they become on the general election ballot. We have the power to vote. And if you're not exercising that power, you don't have the right to sit in the stands and just be complaining and yelling at the players on the team.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's our duty to vote. If you're of voting age, and I'm guilty of not. Before the great COVID awakening, I was busy raising kids and coaching soccer, and I was director of coaching for our club, and, on various boards and working, trying to make a living. And then it came to a screeching halt, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Mm-hmm. So like a lot of people, it woke me up. But so I don't want to bash people that aren't involved too much, but it is, if there's people listening that maybe aren't so much involved, at least learn who your legislators are, get out and vote, and then support the people. I think you need to support the people that you want to get elected.
That's right.
Right now I'm helping a lady with her, a friend with her city council campaign. And I've helped with school board campaigns. And I just, whatever I can do, if it's go knock doors, or if it's go put signs up, or just give them whatever little bits of knowledge I have from running for office. I think it's important that people help out.
Oh, yeah. I 100% on that. And, Oliver, I was just like you. I'm going to actually put some blame on myself here, because what? Like you said, I was trying to run how many businesses? You got kids, you're trying to go to sporting events. I get it, parents. I've been there. And then, one day all of a sudden I wasn't very active. And then all of a sudden you look at how the world is, and you're like, whoa. And then you decide, well, I got to do something to make a difference. Well, now we're on the defense, right? Because for years we did nothing. We stayed silent. We didn't do anything. And I would love to switch us to get us onto the offense, which would be a much better place to be, right? It's the offense, and we can hit our goals easier and all that kind of good stuff. And, and I remember when I was in 2019 was the first time I really put my name in the ring, and I ran for mayor of Algona.
Okay.
Yeah, I ran for mayor, and it was good. We had good candidates running for mayor. There was no dirty race, because it was good people. And I would just, for me, looking back, I would say I thank God every day I didn't win the mayor race.
Sure.
But what God was doing for me, it was a teachable moment. It was not only teaching me how to campaign, because I made mistakes. There was a lot of the lessons that I learned during just that whole process. But when it was all over and I lost, and it was the very next morning, God told me, on every team and every game, there's a winner and a loser. But the most important part was you were in the game.
And what do you mean God told you?
Well, I'm always listening for his voice. I'm always listening for that voice, or that Holy Spirit inner, that inner voice that you hear. And it was the next morning. I was laying in bed, and I heard I heard God say, you know what, Stacy, there's always a winner and a loser. But the most important thing is that you were in the game.
Right, right.
Well,
yeah, I didn't have any trouble after I lost my House race. I mean, it was a tough race, tough district, against a, 6-year incumbent. But I just built on that. I just I took a weekend off and went to the lake and hung out and whatever. But, people, they call me up or, oh, how you doing, man? Oh, man. And I'm like, I'm fine,
Like we fell into this deep depression.
Doing shots,
That's right. I think people thought I was at home crying, going through a box of Kleenex.
Oh, Stacy, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You lost.
Yeah.
Well, how many times does a batter get up and miss,
Oh, I mean, you're going to strike out.
In the world. Well, let's talk about your faith. I mean, you bring it up a lot. You wear it on your sleeve. You lead with it. Tell me about that.
Another thing I will confess to is that for years, I would have just said I was a Christian.
Right.
But I wasn't a born again Christian. I wasn't actively seeking the journey with God and seeking to have a changed life. And we're all sinners. I mean, but I look back and I'm thinking, whoa, I did some really bad things, just crappy things. And I say crappy things, like things that God wouldn't approve of. Right.
Right. Right.
And there's, for years I was like that and not realizing that type of a Christian is a lukewarm Christian. And it's very clear in Revelations what he's going to do to the lukewarm. And, I'm just grateful. God got a hold of me and said, you know what? Your life is going to be much better when you start listening to your Father and having a relationship with me. And that's what it took for me to start changing, start reading the Bible, devotions. And, when you do something like that, that's obedient, then God just opens up doors. And in 2021, I felt God give me the nudge to start leading a women's retreat, a Christian retreat. And he wanted me to take people there and motivate them and inspire them. And so I started doing this in 2021. This coming February will be my 7th women's retreat, and I rent an entire private island off the coast of Belize.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah, but you can't go, Oliver, because you're not a woman.
Know.
So
well, it depends.
That's right. But I did, and you know what? That was all because I started being obedient, and I started listening, and God started working on me. And my life is completely different than I was 10 years ago. And I'm thinking, why did I wait so long? Like, what was wrong with me that I waited so long?
I want to hear more about this. Tell me about the group.
The group retreat.
And what you guys or ladies do.
Yeah. Well, and for years, so my trade is I went to cosmetology school. So
okay.
my trade is I'm a hairdresser, which becomes a therapist.
Right.
Yeah.
You
listen to a lot of women.
Shelley Flockhart, she was on the show. She's a therapist.
Yes, look at us therapists, right? And I love Shelley.
And she's running for city council in Dallas Center.
Yes, she is. Go Shelley, go.
Yeah.
So listening to women for almost 30 years, right, from standing behind the chair, I could come down to the top 5 things that every woman has the same challenge on.
Okay.
Every one of them. And so because of that, then what God placed on my heart was when I take them to this island. So I was thinking okay, God, if I take them to this island, this tiny private island that is like heaven on earth, what do I do with them? And it was laid on my heart to focus on those 5 things. Not only what does God say about those, but how can you, Stacy, use your own personal stories to influence them and motivate them to become better people for whom God designed them to be.
What are those 5 things?
Oh, you want to?
Is it a secret?
It's kind of a secret.
Is it?
Well, because I want people to go, on the trip, but they don't find out about them unless they come out for sunrise devotions, which is 5:45 in the morning.
Okay.
You should see these ladies when I say, because I can only take 20 ladies because the island only fits 20 people.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a Gilligan's Island. It's super cool. It's beautiful.
Wow.
It's a 5-star, so don't think we're roughing it.
How long do you stay there?
We're there for 6 days.
6 days?
6 days.
So that's a transformation.
You wouldn't even believe the transformation that happens.
I did all of Tony Robbins' programs when I was young, and we would do like a 6-7 day program. and it was life-altering, powerful stuff. So 6 days, that's on an island.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall or the coconut tree.
If you get a chance to ever talk to any of them that have come, but I had to have 6 days because every day we have to focus on one of those top 5 issues, you know?
So do some of the same women come again and again, or is it new?
Very few. I
few.
really encourage people I want new people to come, right? Because I want to see more lives transformed. But I have had a few that come because, you know, normally when you do something twice, you get more out of it the second time. So I've had people from all over the country, New Hampshire, Virginia, Texas, Minnesota. I have a gal coming from Wyoming this year. So, we have people from all over the country that will trust me, sign up, and we fly together, get to this tiny private island, and it's a no hair, no makeup trip. You should see the ladies freak out.
I bet.
When I say, like, you can't bring any makeup or hair supplies, they're like, what? And I'm like, who are we there to impress? Right. We have nobody to impress. First of all, that's not what we shouldn't be impressing anybody that way. It's just, we're going to focus on that. And that's one of the things, wink, wink, on the first day that we really focus on. But it is awesome. And then, I've had the privilege of baptizing 7 women in that ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's it tears me up every time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're about over the hour
mark.
Yeah.
How did that time go by so fast?
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks, Oliver. I just love people who, how we connected.
Sure.
And
yeah,
isn't it it's just great loving people.
It is. So God bless you. Everything you're doing is fantastic. Do you want to share your website or your socials or whatever you want to share for? Yeah.
So the Facebook page that we just got up is, Stacy for Iowa. So you can look that up. That would actually be the website too. Stacy for Iowa. It's just all spelled out there.
Yeah.
.com.
Okay.
So that website actually, I think is going to be up today.
Okay.
Fantastic. Which is super awesome of the gal who's doing it. It's just awesome. And I did do another Facebook page besides my personal one that I'm encouraging people to follow, so that way I can put up my, schedule for campaigning or what's happening, or of course the donations. I'm gladly accept donations to do whatever I can to help get the word out, and so that we can win this race.
Awesome. Well, good luck. We'll be cheering you on from the sidelines. Everybody, StacyForIowa.com, and God bless you, and we'll see you next time, I'm sure.
All right. Thank you, Oliver.